strategy,
design,
marketing,
UX,
digital.
development.
This is Agencies That Build, the show dedicated to leaders and teams that design and deploy in the digital world. My name is Casey. I'm a former coder and agency owner.
And I'm Varun, a better coder and an agency partner.
Better? It's probably true. This show is sponsored by Galaxy.
On a mission to help agencies grow.
Varun, we're live, man.
We are live. I'm excited.
Ready to do this? We got an amazing guest today.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Who is this person we're talking to? Let me introduce you to him. Entrepreneur, author, speaker, web developer extraordinaire, flexible teams, flexible webs is his design, his goal. He is a reformed coder, previously a coder, now creating companies. He's always asking, why are we doing things? What's the driving force behind companies, projects, teams? President at Sparkbox, Ben Callahan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. You're busy. And I tried to encapsulate just a snippet of that in introduction. I'm glad you're here. It's our digital leadership series. And so I want to stop talking and I want to pass you this thing. It's heavy for me, but I think it looks like you work out. So here we go. Ugh. Okay. Go ahead and grab that. You got it?
All right. Got it.
Look at that backhand grip man. This guy's strong. All right, Ben, take that Thor's hammer here, the one and only, the actual Thor's hammer. Take that, smash for us some kind of myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah, I think because we're in the tech space, I think our default is to sort of rely on technology to solve the problems for us. I see this a lot in interacting with other folks, like me. The questions always come up about what tool should I be using to do this thing or whatever it is, And so I think for me, a big myth is that technology solves the problems for us, when in reality, there are always people problems. There's always a person on the other side of that tool. And so I like to think about the idea of sort of building relationships as being more important than building the products, and that's kind of where I try to keep my focus, and my team is very focused in that way too. When I ask our customers why they work with us, I always think they're going to talk about how amazing the work is, or our processes really, set us apart. But really, all they ever say is, "We just like you," and so like it just comes down to this idea that like the people, right? That's our projects don't fail for technical reasons; they fail for people reasons. Our projects don't succeed because of technology; they succeed because of the people involved. So
it's almost counterintuitive that here we are, a bunch of tech guys talking about how it's actually all comes down to the people behind the scenes, whether it's the client on their end or the coder on our end, designer. A lot of people don't know that, though. I think a lot of people, we get distracted by the tech and we feel like tech is the magic solution. Why do you suppose, why is this truth not so well known?
I think we do know it, like sort of deep down in our gut, but I think it's easy to get distracted by the tech. And also, honestly, it's easier to focus on the technology. The people stuff is so hard, it's uncomfortable. You got to have hard conversations, you got to be willing to sort of go through difficult things with people. I remember when I started this business, I vividly remember the first time we didn't do well on a project for a customer. And I was scared to death to have the conversation with them, And I think what I learned is, where I used to avoid that kind of conflict with a client, what I learned is that going through that conflict makes your relationship with them stronger on the other side.
Right.
And so that conflict is what creates the strength in a relationship, because now you've said, hey, we can make it through difficult things together. And now there's another level of trust that you can't get if everything is just always roses, Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. Like, whether it's deploying or, anyone that's in the shit together, right? And if you go through tough times, you always end up being much more bonded than the people that you all went to the circus together. You all went, had a good time, we're acquaintances. But when you survive something tough, even when things don't go right, but everyone really rolled up their sleeves and got it done. I mean, you learn about who people really are.
Yeah.
And yes, and this This resonates with me as well now that you said it that way, that it's the people, is the relationship first before the technology. So I remember, I think a few years ago, one of the clients that we worked with where we had, we screwed up, like we literally did not do well. Uh, at the end of the day, it was our connections, our mutual respect for each other that saved the day. Like they understood, they bought in to hiring us to work with us, not because we were technically fit at that time or not, because they really liked us,
Yeah.
because we understood each other's problems very well. Well, they knew that we have a distributed team, we have a different culture, and we set the expectations that way. So there is that mutual understanding about how we are going to deliver certain aspects of it. So even if we fail that actual project or we did something wrong, they got it. Like they said, all right, we are in it together. So
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. You got it.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising though, hearing two of you openly talking about the imperfections in the process or when it didn't go right. I think a lot of people are nervous, especially agency owners, when you're first getting started, to you're like you're kind of showing that you're showing your cards. So no, everything's perfect over here. We've never messed up. But no, you say, hey, mistakes happen. And what is it about both of you where you're able to do that? You're able to just openly talk about, yeah, there's been times where it didn't go right. And I guess it means you're not nervous that that's going to hurt you from eventually having more deals with other people who haven't met you.
Yeah.
Ben,
I would like,
I'm passing that to you first, man.
I'll
Go.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben. You go ahead.
Oh, either way is fine. I was just going to say that, like, if somebody's telling you that everything's perfect, they're lying, right? Because nobody's perfect. So, I mean, I think maybe Varun, we're on the same page just in terms of like transparency is core to like who we are. So I'm going to tell a client if they're not a good fit for us, if we don't have that expertise. I'm not going to try to force it, because I want to engage in, a relationship with somebody where I know we are actually a good fit. And, we always, there's always the opportunity for something to slip. Software is so messy and you just don't know what you're getting into until you're in it,
Yeah.
and that's just part of the process. So I think you have to, instead of pretending like those things don't happen, let's just acknowledge them and let's put some stuff in place to be ready when they do, and work through it. That's our approach, at least.
Yeah. And in our firm, I have seen that gradually change. We have been around for 20 years, right? So in the beginning, I remember that we would, as a company, we would just say yes to everything. We would say we are the best, players in the market. Hire us. We will do everything at the best quality. Slowly, that we realize, like, that is not really true. I mean, let's yes, we could be one of the best, but we are not the best. We can do some stuff well. There are a lot of things that we don't do well. So let's accept that, and let's be transparent about the clients, about our strengths and weaknesses. One thing that we have really started recently rolling out as part of our core values is having the mindset of continuous improvement, right? Don't so we want our team to get that mindset. Like we don't want to be perfect. We are not, no one is perfect, but there's always room for growth and improvements. So let's just make that as our priority. Keep learning and make sure we communicate that to the client as well from the stage one, from the step one. Like, we are in this project together. We will learn as we go, and we will help each other on along the way. So that's the mindset thing that it's hard to, it takes time to sink in and then implement.
Yeah, totally. I love that iteration, continuous improvement. That's a big part of our sort of approach as well. I think it kind of has to be in this business, like
things are changing so fast, right?
It's so fast. Yep, it's true.
So
I do want to get to, you mentioned core values, Varun. I want to talk about that at one point, but I want to finish this one part around, if it's the relationship, not the product. what do you guys think? What are some of the recommendations then? How do you make, and I'm feeling like transparency is going to be on the list just from what we've just said, just being open and honest or whatnot. But how do you, if it is all about the relationship, how do you do that the right way? How do you best do relationship?
I mean, definitely transparency. I mean, I think for us, it's about, we want to build trust, you know? So, you build trust by being honest with people, you know, even if it means that you maybe aren't the best fit. We've had that happen before where, you know, a customer has come to us for something that we don't like, we probably could figure it out, but we're not maybe the best fit. And we'll say that, and we'll say, you know, like, let us help you find somebody, and we'll do that. And then they'll come back at some point when it's a thing that they know we're good at. So we've had that happen. We've had scenarios where, like, you know, I mean, anybody who's in this business knows it's difficult to estimate things accurately, right? So a lot of folks these days, I think, are working with ranges. They're doing discovery early on to try and better understand the context. What's the thing we're actually building, and then providing ranges. And as we make progress, sort of narrowing in on a final figure, you know, dollar figure. That's, I think, fairly normal these days. But I think, you know, like with budgets, if somebody comes to you and they say, once you've earned a little trust, if they come to you and say, I've got $100,000 to do this thing. And like in the past, we've seen a faster way, you know, and actually cut that in third and said, hey, you know what, like, given all the other, you know, factors, you know, what is your team already good with? What systems are already in place? We think we could solve this problem for you for 30 grand instead of 100. And give us a week to play with that a little bit, and let's see, you know, if that makes sense. And there's trust there. And so working in that way has allowed us to build that trust even further. Right now, they never question an estimate from us because they know we have their best interest in mind. It's not just about how do we get the dollar figure as high as we can. We, you know, before COVID, we used to always do in person, even though none of our clients really are close, like, you know, our team's distributed, you know, like yours, Varun. So I think the physical location part is hard, but we did, before this COVID stuff hit, we did like to try and have at the beginning of an engagement, an actual in-person meeting. And we would let folks come to our headquarters in Dayton, or we would fly to meet them at theirs. And that, you know, a couple days of in-person time is so hard to replace, you know, and it always came with something that was completely unrelated. You know, maybe we'd go to dinner after our first day's meetings and just find out what these people like to do, you know. You know, we try to do some of that stuff now virtually. We'll send, you know, we have little Sparkbox onesies. If someone's having a baby, we'll send that. Or if something comes up in the project, you know, we'll make t-shirts for folks, or, you know, just something to like let them know we know there's a lot more to this than just the work, right? We're building relationships. So I think it just takes a lot. It's different each time, you know, but those are the kinds of things we're thinking about.
One thing I heard about discovery, right? Like building trust, so getting trust with the client, and then having them hire you for this just discovery, where you are basically taking money from the client, helping them figure out what the problem is and how will you define the problem, right? Has that, and I've heard that from many agencies, like who are established, who are at a point where they have a name, people know them, and you know. But when you start out, like, you know, like if you've been around for some time now, right? When you started out, has that always been the case? Like, would you do the discovery, like a paid discovery every time, or, you know, how would you advise smaller agencies, maybe, you know, who are just starting out, right? How should they approach discovery?
Yeah, this is interesting. We have not always done paid discovery, but our business has changed a lot over the years. You know, we were similar to what you described, Varun. There was a season where we would take money for anything. You know, I used to do animation work in After Effects.
Yeah.
I was doing Flash. I did audio editing. I did video. We did, you know, everything. You know, we've designed trade show booths, you know, like, so that was a season for us. And I think, you know, like we specialized, right? Our specialization isn't like hyper special, like not into a specific industry, but we solve problems with web technologies. That's kind of what we do, you know? And so So we're a software company, really. And I think the paid discovery thing for us, I think we just kept finding ourselves in situations where we felt like we were just taking orders from the customer, right? They would come to us and they would say, we need somebody to do X. And it's, they would have the problem already solved, I think, or the solution already defined. And we kept feeling this tension of like, man, I think we have a lot of experience and we could probably help them come up with a better solution if that's what they were asking. But if you're not establishing up front that that's who you are, then I think people assume they're going to just give you the task and you quote it and go do it. And so we wanted to be more in the problem solving space than just the order taking space. And so for us, that meant restructuring our whole business development process so that we were more closely modeling what it would be like to actually work with us. So that ripples into things like an estimate. Well, I don't want them to just come to us and say, here's the thing, and then we disappear for 2 weeks and come back and give them a spreadsheet that lays out exactly what it's going to cost, because that's not what it's going to be like to work with us, right? It's going to be much more collaborative. So instead, we do a quick sort of tiny discovery call where we ask a lot of questions with them. We just do that for free early on. And then we create a collaborative estimate and we share that with them, and we highlight cells where they could update things. And we just say, hey, based on this quick 30-minute conversation, here's kind of how we're thinking about this approach, and what we're doing is we're trying to like say to them, hey, we want you to participate with us in this process, right? We're going to bring expertise, but you are going to bring expertise on your business and your customers and all of that. And neither of us can really be successful without the other. So try to model that early. And then a big part of it has been saying, especially with larger software projects, it's just, if somebody's giving you an estimate for this, it's almost guaranteed that it's inaccurate because there's not enough information to provide that. And we want to be transparent with you. So the way we get to an accurate estimate is we do a little bit of work together. That gives your team a chance to get to know us. That helps us as an organization, as two organizations, build trust with each other. At the end, we still offer something valuable. We'll give you a project, like a roadmap. We'll give you technical documentation and the, experience documentation, all those things that you could technically take to another group if you just feel like it's not a good fit. But our hope is that you choose to continue working with us, and part of the output of that discovery is a collaborative estimate for, the next few phases. So that's kind of the approach we've taken. And to start with, it was small amounts, 5-10 grand that we would charge for those. Now it's anywhere from 20 to 40 grand that we'll charge for a discovery engagement. And those are, 3 to 6 weeks long, typically. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great because that makes a lot of sense. Like you start with few phone calls, free, that is free part of discovery. But then as you know more, then you kind of roll out the discovery process in which you give them the paid discovery option. So that makes sense. One thing you mentioned, you brought up was about specialization versus generalization. So I want to pick your brain on that. Everyone is talking about being a specialist. David C. Breaker, Blair, and I mean, they talk about that like all the time. How do you? So you said you position yourself as a problem solver using web technologies, right? What does that mean? Like, you are not industry specific. Are you saying that you would just do any type of work for anyone as long as they meet the budget or criteria for the cost, or like? There must be some line you must draw somewhere, right? That differentiates you from others.
Yeah, this is interesting. And I go back and forth on this. My partner, Rob, and I go back and forth on this a lot. I think there's a lot of potential reward in being hyper specialized. I definitely think that, right? You want to get a steak, you go to a steakhouse and you pay a lot more for it than you would if you went to Applebee's, right? And it's going to be better, but the risk, of course, is that like you choose an industry. Like, let's just say you decided we're going to be the studio that helps marketing for events, right? And so all of a sudden COVID comes along and there are no events, right? So the risk is the reward is great because you become known and all the folks who do events want to hire you and you can have a massive portfolio of all this event work. But the risk is something happens external to your group that changes that space. And you're now, all of your marketing, all of your portfolio, everything is relying on that specific niche. So I think that's a decision that every group is going to have to make, right? How risky are you willing to be? People specialize in industries. That's one way to do it. Some people specialize in technologies, right? There's a lot of shops that have made their name as, Drupal shops or JavaScript shops, or even more specific where we do React, those are great, but technologies change, man, and they change very frequently, right? So we've avoided that as well. And so instead, what we talk about is, we noticed a trend maybe 8 years ago, which was that all of our customers were doing a lot of hiring. They were building their own. I think everybody's finally realizing they're all software companies. Everybody's a software company now. Even if their product is selling jeans online, they still have, 50 UX people and hundreds of developers or thousands of developers, right? In order to get a scalable, secure e-commerce platform online that can sell those jeans, right? So they are not only a jean manufacturer, they are a digital software company as well. And so with that realization in the last decade, I think all those organizations are building teams that do exactly what we do. So what we try to say is like, hey, we've been doing it longer. We have deep expertise. We also work with lots of different organizations. So instead of a specialist who is very sort of narrowly minded, we're going to bring an outside perspective to your problem. And the big differentiator for us is that we're going to help you hire. We're going to train your team. So the expertise that we bring, hiring us is an investment in your team, right? That expertise is going to be something that we help deliver to your team. And so they will be better at the end of the project, right? We mentor them. We do code reviews. We put a good process in place with them so that it's not just us disappearing, building a product, delivering it, and then we're gone. It's a longer term, sort of trust building type relationship. So at least for us, that's the specialization. And the customers who choose to work with us usually have an internal team, and they're looking for somebody to like really train those folks up. And sometimes that means we work ourselves out of a job. There's a utility company down in Knoxville we did some great work with for maybe a year or so. And part of that work was they had a couple junior developers at the time, and we just mentored those two throughout the entire project. And by the time we delivered, they were doing the bulk of the work, and we were just reviewing code, and we set them up to be able to serve their organization in such a good way that we really haven't been needed again. Now they're also a great reference for us, so there's other value that we get from that. And that's honestly, like, that's the best thing. Our mission as an organization is to inspire and empower a better web, right? We want people to think about, like, what are the best ways to do this? More about accessibility and performance, and like making the experience available to anybody on any device at any bandwidth. So we can't do that with 50 people, around the US. So that means we have to think bigger. We have to think about our alumni. When folks leave Sparkbox, where do they go? And are they going to take that idea with them and plant it somewhere else? That's why we do a lot of educational, we teach the teams that we work with so that that will spread in that way. That's why we do workshops at events. That's why we do all that stuff. We write a lot, we speak a lot. Those are all efforts to try and spread that idea that, hey, there's a better way. And it's not that we're perfect, but we're trying really hard to figure out. And our process is always fighting for its life. We're always looking for a better solution. So that's kind of the motivation behind it for us.
A lot of great stuff. You have said so many good things. I want to, talk about each one of them, but I will pick just one on the mentoring, right? So I really like that, the way you said it, that that's kind of your differentiator, right there. Like, you come in as a mentor, right? You are not like just any other software company. You come in and help the client understand and learn, and so that they can be more independent, right? So on that note, so I want to get a little technical there. Like, how do you do that? Because mentoring usually requires, an expertise, right? You need like really senior people who have done a lot of similar type of work for a long period of time. Now, sure, your team, consists of very senior people, but not all of them. There will be, hierarchies. That's like any other
Sure.
company. There are seniors, juniors. So when you come in as a vendor, right? How do you structure yourself where, the entire team is utilized,
Yeah.
and at the same time they're adding value in the mentoring piece that you
Yeah.
you sold the client to?
I think about the mentor. So I might disagree with one tiny way that you stated that, Varun, which is that
Shots
in order
fired.
to be a mentor, what's that?
Shots fired. Bring it.
No. It's a
Took
friendly
half an hour to
disagreement.
be there, but I'm glad you're there. Go ahead.
I think so. When you describe what are the requirements to be a mentor, I think it's much broader than somebody who has a lot of industry experience. That might be necessary if the person you're mentoring also has a lot. But I'm a firm believer that every human on this planet has something that they can teach me. So like, what is it that we're mentoring, right? If it's about writing JavaScript code, then certainly the mentor has to know a little bit more about that than the person they're mentoring. But we run an apprenticeship program at Sparkbox. We've done this for almost 10 years now. And it's an opportunity. It's a paid position. We do 2 to 4 of those in our software full stack developer apprenticeship program each year, 6 months long. We pay them for 6 months just to come and learn how to be a great developer. And one of the reasons that we do that is because I think having the sort of structure internally for us of mentorship, like all of our team works with those apprentices for that 6-month period, and they have an opportunity to mentor them. That gives us practice at mentoring. And then as those apprentices, if we do choose to hire or make offers to those folks, when they come in, it's amazing how invested they are in that apprenticeship program and how they want to pour back into the next group. And so those folks are great entry-level developers when they start out of their first position out of an apprenticeship program, but they're not senior, but they're still going to mentor that next class. Does that make sense? So yeah. I think you have to be, it's like this, right? It's like, I need to learn from somebody who's a little better, and I need to play the role in that chain. Because if I don't play that role, then someone else is getting left behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we try to structure it, right? We have technical directors who might sit, or we have director level folks or tech lead folks who might sit on a project, and they're going to mentor the more senior folks. But we also have to get a lot of work done. So we might put folks on the project who will play a role alongside the designers or developers from our client, and participate in code reviews. They may write code together. They may, pair program together. And so it's a mix, like you said, Varun, but I think it's all about like being in the trenches with folks, Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense, man. Wanted to kind of roll up the sleeves a little bit. At least today I actually have sleeves I can roll up and get just a little bit, in the trenches here. When it comes to building, you've got the apprenticeships, you've got the team, we've talked about the different styles. Are there any best practices when it comes to building? And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Any best practices when it comes to actually putting fingers to keys, to compilers, to code? What's your approach?
Well, we already talked a little bit about iteration, I think. In this business, like, you almost never get it right the first time. So we try really hard to put this idea of like, we'll learn and adjust. That's kind of like a big deal for us. And so we try things, we try to get them out quickly. We try to put them in front of folks, watch them being used, and we iterate. I think that's really the only way to build good software. What else? I don't want to, I think it's probably unwise for us to get hyper specific, because I think every business is a little bit different, and the kind of products you're building, it's going to dictate that in some respects. But for us, it's like, we want to have a workplace where there's a lot of different perspectives, different experiences, because I think that's going to bring a lot of interesting solutions to the surface that maybe wouldn't be there if it was just a bunch of comp sci folks.
Right.
So that's a big part of it for us. Like we talked about transparency, that's a huge part of it. We talk about timeline, scope, and budget every week with our customers, and specifically budget, because I think when we started, it was the idea of like, I just don't want to have that conversation. I'm nervous about those difficult conversations. So we just wouldn't talk about the budget. And if there was ever a case where we could tell early on it's getting off track, we would always justify, oh, we'll fix it next week. I'm sure y'all have been there. So instead, now what we do is just like, if we're starting to see that it's off, we say that right away. And then we sit down with our customer and we say, hey, we can fix this, but we need to reprioritize things. Let's talk about what's really important. Where do we draw these lines? And so then they're a part of the conversation with us. So they're aware of what's happening, and we can work together to figure out a solution, and that's kind of how we navigate those difficult situations. It's people, right? Like it's the conversation. It's not some, forecasting tool that's doing that for us.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
Yeah.
Talking about building, right? I want to pick your brain on one thing that is very common in the agency world. People don't talk about that very publicly. There is this negative connotation around that, contracting, subcontracting, offshoring, nearshoring, right?
Yeah.
What I've seen the trend, right? I mean, when a new agency, small agency, 1 to 5 people, like when they're trying to scale, they don't have people. That is the good time when they start rolling out, giving the work to outside vendors, right? Because they want to acquire a new client. Slowly they start getting big. As they start getting big, they want to, do everything in-house. So as they start reaching 15, 20, 25 people, they said, we are doing all, internal. We don't subcontract. We don't hire any vendors. And then as they grow even bigger, beyond 50s, 80, then again, that mindset starts coming in. Right now, I think because now they are more, doing one thing over and again, or sometimes they, even doing generalists, they still try to maximize profit by hiring people outside. What is your, process? Like, what do you guys think about, the whole subcontracting model?
Yeah. I know some organizations that do it very well. I know, I've worked not in the last, 10 years, but before that, in a prior life, I was a part of an organization where there was a lot of that, and it was a struggle, so I think it's totally possible to work really well with a model where you're subcontracting a lot. I think for us, we're incredibly conservative financially, so we save a lot of money, because the industry itself is notorious for sort of these ups and downs, right? And so what we want is, I think we do that because we prioritize sort of the care of our employees over a lot of things. And that means we don't hire because we're busy. So we don't, like, if some big customer were to come to me this afternoon and say, hey, Ben, we need, 10 people for the rest of this year and next year, I'm not going to go try to hire 10 people. That in my mind is like a recipe for disaster, because that client, that may work out great, but they also may walk away a couple months in, and now I've got 10 people whose families I feel responsible for. So, so for us, we try to be ready to hire when the right person comes along. And so we're always kind of accepting applications, and we're trying to put ourselves financially in a position where we could afford to hire somebody, even if we didn't sign a new gig, and then when the right people walk by, we try to say, yeah, you actually are a great addition to our culture. We would love to have you join. And maybe we don't have something for them right away, but our hope is like the biz dev pipeline does its thing and we continue to grow, so it's a more conservative approach. But when those large clients do show up and they ask us to deliver, we're not afraid necessarily to subcontract. We do have sort of a small network of folks that we have worked with in the past, that we can call on. And so it just depends on the customer. Some customers don't like that idea. Some are totally cool with it. So I think for us, it's just very contextual. I don't have like a, I'm not like, it has to be one way or the other. I'm pretty flexible on how we get things done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But so one thing on that. So you said you do have small network of people, and when you do bring in, do you usually remain? Are you usually transparent with the client that yes, we are working with
Yeah.
a vendor, or is it all like white labeled? How does
No,
it
very,
work?
very transparent. Again, part of the just building trust is like, I would never want them to not know that and then find out and feel like we deceived them. So yeah, we're very transparent about that. It's not something that we do often. But when we do, we just say, hey, like we're really busy right now and we want to work with you. We know a couple people we've worked with in the past. They're trustworthy. They do good work. They fit with the culture and the vibe, and they'd be a great addition to the team, So
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Well, I'm curious, like if you were to have a crystal ball, maybe you have one, and or it's a crystal bottle back there of, is that Contro? What is that?
yeah. Yeah, I'm working on decorating the space here, so that's just a quick little.
Okay, for those
yeah.
listening, classy. Is that a stag? Like you have this
Yeah.
painted photo of a stag when you got a little wooden table with a black and white picture, like a martini shaker and a bottle of alcohol. And it's like, what a manly background, like.
What's happening is with everybody working from home, everybody's thinking about their space, and what I keep seeing is everybody putting all these like cute little things on their walls, and I was like, no, we're gonna go big. so this
that was
is like
during
a
COVID.
5.5
you
foot.
got that?
Yeah, just like last week actually.
Wow.
So, yeah. So you're the first folks to like see it outside of Sparkbox. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Oh, just that's where I live. This is my home. All you need is like a black powder musket on the other side.
That's
I'm just like, oh man, ancient materials. But speaking of the past, let's go to the future. So like, where does this go? Where are we evolving with building projects? Because it's people. You said is a solution, but where is technology going? Where are these apps going? What's the future?
Oh man, if I could answer that.
Yeah, what stock should I invest in the next 30 days?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to tell. I think I'm excited. I mean, this is terrible, but like with the sort of state of the world, sort of a lot of fear around the pandemic and that kind of thing, I think a lot of our customers are shifting their budgets towards digital experiences. I think organizations are finally realizing they can actually let their people work from home. I think there's like this wave of flexibility in the workplace that's coming that I'm pretty excited about. I don't say this to sort of sound like we're bragging, but we've always had that. Like for us, one of the reasons we started Sparkbox is because we just wanted to make a place that would be a place we'd want to work, and I think both Rob and I and a lot of the people on my team, we're not like 9-to-5 type people, like we have families, or we have friends, or we want to travel, or we want to live our lives, we want to experience other things too. And so we don't, our maximum billable expectation for folks most of the time is 32 hours a week. And we try to create a place where people can actually rest a little bit between, those weeks. And we have a mandatory vacation policy. So instead of unlimited, which if you look at the data, most people never use, we have mandatory. So we get to the end of the year. If you haven't used it, we're going to start counting backwards from the end of the year and send you home, and the whole point is like, you have to rest, right? If you're going to be your best when you're working, you have to rest up. And come recharged and ready to tackle it, So that's kind of the goal. That, we have projects sometimes that scale and we need to ask people to bill 40. And so we will do that occasionally, but it's not super common. But that does give us a little bit of flex too, Varun, back to the question around, subcontracting. Well, we try to build in a little bit of room for us to flex up if we need it without having to go outside the org too, in that way. In terms of what's coming, I mean, because we're sort of web focused, it's incredible what you can do with the web these days, so I'm very excited about, we're working on a project now. I can't talk about the customer, but it's very sort of
what does it rhyme?
It's very three-dimensional,
Cool.
kind of a three-dimensional shopping type. It's interesting stuff, and I mean, we couldn't have done that a couple of years ago. It just wasn't really ready.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of fun stuff coming that's very experiential.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the future, man. Well, next thing in my head is like, who are you? Take us back to like little Ben days. Where'd you grow up? What was it like? Did you always know you're going to be an entrepreneur,
Mm.
coder, agency owner, all those things? Speaker.
My parents were in the military, so we moved a lot. So
Okay.
I think, I don't know, those of you who have had to move often maybe feel this, that made me very close with my brothers. I think I have two younger
Mhm.
brothers because, we were always moving to a new school and had to
Yeah.
make new friends, but I always had my brothers,
What
so
branch?
they're, what's that?
What branch? Military.
Well, it's complicated. They started in the Navy, met in Japan, and then came back here. And my dad moved into the Air Force, and so he.
Mine too.
So then
Mine too. Started in the Navy and moved to the Air Force.
Really?
Yeah, because
That's not a common story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So we ended up Air Force, moving around a lot, every few years. But I think that makes you really flexible, adaptable, because you kind of just have to, and social, right? Like it wasn't an option for me to sort of not be able to make friends quickly because I only had a short amount of time, So I think for me, that's like something that comes very naturally, just to like get to know people quickly and move to a fairly, deep level fairly quickly with folks. When I was in, let's see, I would have been a junior in high school. I took a geometry class from a guy named Mr. Coleman. And I remember this was back in the day where they had transparencies. You remember those like gooseneck looking things, and
Yep.
they'd have you put the clear plastic
Yeah,
and
you
could write on
draw
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he pulls out that thing and he puts this, he had like printed on a sheet of plastic, and he puts it up there, and it was the formula to calculate the area of a circle. So pi r squared. You
Yep.
put the radius in and you can get the area, right?
There you
And
go.
so he's like, get your graphing calculators out. So I got my TI 82.
Was it
I
a
think,
2?
out. I
Okay.
think it was an 82 or an 81.
I had 83. Does that make me young?
Yeah, you're a youngster.
Youngster. Damn it.
So I get that thing out, and he's like, go here, you type this in, and basically the program asked you for the radius, and then it spit out the area. And this blew my mind. I had never really programmed before that, but like that simple little thing started me on this path. And I went home and I started writing all kinds of programs on my calculator. I had like a blackjack game. I had this thing I made called Physics Space, where these little physics characters would fly around and you had to like dodge them.
Yeah.
Just all kind. I was just like fascinated with this idea. I wrote a program that would allow me to like pretend to clear the memory of the calculator, because every time there was a test, they would just wipe the memory, and I didn't have a way to back this stuff up, and I'd spend hours typing the stuff in. So I never cheated, but I would run that program and let the teacher go through the menu thinking she was clearing the memory,
Wow. That is next level.
Devious, but that's really what got me started. And all I really used was like labels and go-tos and variables. And when I got to college and decided I wanted to do computer science, I remember sitting in the first programming class and them showing us I think we were using Turbo Pascal 7 in that class.
Oh, geez.
And they put up there like a while loop, right? Where you could loop through until, while a certain variable was equal to or less than or greater than. And I remember thinking, oh, I've been building that with labels and go-tos and just like incrementing a variable, like manually. But there's all these structures that I could use. So I was in heaven with that stuff. It was like just so natural for me. So I kind of did the computer science thing.
Yeah.
I took a job right out of school as a software engineer working on an AS400. This is like old IBM mainframe-y type stuff,
Yeah.
And after about 4 or 5 years of fixing other people's bugs, I think I was like, I don't really want to do this, So I took a little break and just started playing around with like Flash and a bunch of other fun web stuff, and eventually started doing some video and animation and audio. We talked a little bit about that. I had a little recording studio for a season. That's why I have this mic and a bunch of other gear around here. Kind of led me to just, when we were doing video work, one of our clients asked for a website, and I thought, oh, I was computer science, so I could easily build a website. So I did. And then all of our clients started asking for the web, and it was just, I mean, the timing was just right. It was early 2000s. It was like the era of the webmaster, um, and so things just grew. I charged $500 for the first website I built. Then I charged 1,000, then 2, then 4,
Yep.
then
Just keep
8.
going up.
And I just kept doubling it until somebody said no. And yeah, I don't know. That's, the rest is history, I guess.
It's fun that it all started with that TI-82, and
Yeah.
thankfully my teachers never wanted us to erase things, and even my physics teacher was like, you can have the formulas in there and I'll even put them on
Mhm.
your test, but it's, can you use them,
Yeah.
which
That's
is better
smart.
because we had so many.
Yeah.
I mean, I had coded so many things, and we had a program called Drug Wars. I don't know how this gets on these. It's like somebody has them and they somehow virally spread school to
Yeah.
school. You would
Yeah.
basically be in New York. You could ride the subway to different areas of New York, and while you were
Yeah.
there, you could buy and sell drugs
Oh my
and go
gosh.
to another, and the prices would change depending on the area you went to. So
Yeah.
you could like make money by like, and this is in high school, but it was a
Yeah.
program, and I know what you're talking about, but to sort of craft these things, and that, I don't know if that language is very similar, like BASIC or something, where you
Yeah.
just, very simple line driven. But yeah, to discover that there are functions and processes that you can just, commands that you can give
Yeah.
it that save you 8 lines of code just from doing one
Right.
particular thing. I could see
Yeah.
that just spins the wheels and make what else can I do?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you asked about, did I always want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college walking out of the computer science building, and in the little breezeway, they had a little cork board, with a bunch of stuff on it and the little tear tags on the bottom of the sheet, and one of them was, I remember it vividly, this purple piece of paper, and it said, come join the Young Entrepreneurs Club. And I looked at that paper and I thought, there is no way I want to own my own business. What a headache. And I just walked out, and like, I think at that time I was thinking about all the things that maybe most entrepreneurs don't think about when they're starting a business, like taxes and like healthcare. And I was maybe just a little too realistic at that time in my life to think I don't want to have to figure that out,
Yeah.
But I'm lucky that I have a team around me, of folks who are really good at that kind of stuff, because I don't think I could do it, on my own. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Man, craziness. Well, hypothetical question. If you could travel back in time, because Varun and I might have a time machine up in the New England area.
all right.
If you can go back in time and you get to see yourself right after you graduated, you got that CS degree, what kind of advice would you give yourself? You, knowing what you've been through and all the things you've experienced, what kind of things would you tell yourself?
I mean, I have, as long as I can remember, I've been somebody that I've kind of been in, how do I say this? I've been sort of put in leadership positions, like unwillingly. I remember in high school, somehow I got chosen to be the president of the French club. When I was in like choral groups and stuff, I was always get elected to be the president of the whatever group it was, I just, and I never really embraced that. I think I was always sort of just like, I don't know. I don't know that I wanted the responsibility. I wanted freedom maybe more than the responsibility. And it's taken me, it took me 30 years to get to a point where I was kind of like, all right, maybe this is something that I should actually think about learning about, being a leader, and what does it mean to like sort of curate a culture, right? How do you create a space where people want to be part of something bigger than themselves, And so I would say the last 10 years, that's kind of what I've tried to focus on is,
Mm.
and I'm fortunate because I have a team of folks who can worry about executing, right? Who can get the work done for the client, who can, think about all the administrative things that come along. Like you got to get the invoice sent, right? Like, I mean, there's a whole mess of stuff that you have to do, or you just can't stay in business straight up, So I've been really fortunate to be able to find folks who are very good at those things. And that frees me, to think about sort of bigger picture things that I really do enjoy thinking about. Um, so I think I would say maybe embrace that part of your personality a little bit more instead of, hiding from it or running from it. I think that would have been good for me when I was younger to be learning about those things.
Yeah. It's almost like giving yourself permission to do that. It's not
Yeah.
a design flaw. It actually ends up being, one of the features, right?
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah,
bug.
totally. Yeah.
Even though institutions around you may think it is, it's actually one of the reasons you're going to be successful later on in life.
Yeah.
You just need someone to tell you that, or you have to
Yeah.
figure it out
Right.
the hard way.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, man, this is great. So have you picked up any any fun, any hobbies over COVID? We've all kind of been stuck inside and all that. You do anything for fun these days?
Yeah, I recently bought a pair of inflatable stand-up paddle boards. So it's
Oh,
getting a little cold
nice.
now, but there was a few months there where I could get those out. That was so fun.
Mm,
It's a new thing for me. I never have done that before. So that was really cool. I honestly, it's funny. All the places that sell them are like out because I think everybody's interested in these new hobbies, right?
totally.
So, but I was able to get a hold of a couple. I've been writing a lot of poetry, which is a new thing for me. I've always been
Really?
an artist. I like to shoot. I make a lot of pictures,
Hmm.
photography, that kind of thing. Um, I think of code as art. I think most people who are developers think of it in that way, or some
Yeah.
of them do. I'm a musician, but poetry is new for me. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if you think about it, even on a compiler, right? My favorite ones were always ones where different things were colored different things.
yeah,
Like you don't need to do that, but
that's right.
of course, it's great because
Yeah,
it shows the art. When you look at lines and lines, and there's reds and greens and all like that,
yeah,
it feels like you're creating something even behind the scenes.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
What kind of poetry?
Well,
Does it rhyme?
I doesn't rhyme. I mean, I probably have done a couple that rhyme, but most of it is I'm sort of in a new relationship, so a lot of love poetry,
Oh,
which is
nice,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
I've been through some difficult personal times in the last year. It's been a challenging year, not beyond just COVID and stuff, just
Sure.
a lot of changes. I'm in a new place here. This is a new house for me. My kids are in a new school district, so like there's just a
Jeez.
lot of change going on for us. But I think it's been a way for me to like process a lot of the things that are happening in life. So if you're interested in reading it, you can follow me on Instagram.
Whoa, you publish it?
I,
I mean, some of
That's
it,
ballsy, man.
yeah, I mean, got to put it out there, right?
What is your Instagram? Do you
Just
want to
Ben
tell everyone?
Callahan. Yeah, sure.
Ben Callahan? Okay.
Yeah,
So you actually put your poetry out on Instagram.
I do sometimes. Yeah,
Wow.
along with some, photography and that kind of thing. I think there's. I was just reading about this. I'm going to find a link to send you. I don't know if you do show notes, but I was just
Yeah, we
reading.
do.
Okay, I was just reading about this woman who is a multi-creative, and she says something along the lines of like, "Hey, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, Varun, with specialization. It's like there's all these
yeah.
artists who now have that same pressure of specialization. Like, what's your medium?
Mm,
And she says, don't if you do more than one thing, that's totally okay, right? There is value in being somebody who works in many mediums. And I
Yeah.
think like for me, that's something this year that I've learned is like I'm a better president of Sparkbox when I take the time to process through some of the things that are happening in my personal life, and so that might be through poetry or music or whatever, photography or just getting out and hiking or whatever it is. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think a lot of us are so that we want to be so good at what we do that that's all that we do.
hmm.
But the reality is there's a limit, to what you can accomplish if you're not also spreading out a little bit,
Yeah.
just my
Yeah.
thoughts. But
No, it resonates with me as well. I mean, I, I'm kind of in a similar boat, trying to do different things and then keep thinking about, but the world tells me to focus, right? They
yeah,
tell me, everybody says like, this is, you need to specialize, but then that's not who I am. That's not how I do things, right?
yeah,
So, I can totally relate to what you said.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Crazy night, crazy times. And you mentioned Instagram. Where else can people connect with you? Where do you want them to seek you out? Maybe to send you a note. They heard this, wanted to connect.
Yeah. So Twitter, just Ben Callahan as well. My DMs are open out there if you want to reach out. Happy to chat. You can, on the Sparkbox website, csparkbox.com, you can fill out that contact form and I get those, our team gets those and we filter them down to the right folks. So that's an easy way to get in touch if you have a question or something.
Okay.
I'm happy to chat with folks, especially if it's, around poetry or if it's around photography or even design systems. That's a big thing we're working on a lot these days. Just whatever, I love having those conversations. A big part of my role these days is just to get to know what's happening in the industry. So if you've got questions or thoughts or advice, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I'm really
Design systems,
it's a
right?
community, right? Yeah. What's
Yeah.
ever?
No, I was just pointing out design systems is definitely something new. And you said you are like personally working on them, or like your like Sparkbox as a team is this something new that you guys are throwing out to the world?
I would say for the last 5 years, it's something that we've done a lot of. And at this point, almost all of our engagements involve a system of some kind. We
Yeah.
do a big survey every year. So we just about a month ago released the 2020 Design Systems Survey. I'll give you a link to that too, Casey. You can throw it in there.
Oh yeah, totally.
So we do a bunch of, a big survey each year. We take that data, we analyze that, and we publish the findings. So this will be the third year we've done that. Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of very large scale design system work, which I think it's interesting because they've been around long enough now that people are starting to see sort of the midlife crisis type problems with them.
Yeah.
So that's fun. There's some new challenging conversations happening in that world. I think there's a lot of value there, but you have to be smart about how you put them into practice. And we've never really built the same one twice because they have to live and breathe like a product inside your organization, so they're very customized. Yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely, reach out to talk about that, because we have recently started seeing a lot of growth and demand from enterprise world, right? Not small business. Small companies don't really understand that. It's like, big shop, big teams, big companies really see the value in that. And then, yes, we knew it's been there for some time, but you saying that it is facing its midlife crisis, I would like to see how and where, what problems and challenges. So maybe some other day
Let's do it.
I'll reach out and
Yeah.
Cool.
That'd be great.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, sweet guys. And it's been fun, man. Ben, thanks so much for coming on and just hanging out with us for a little bit today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Right on. Well, this has been Agencies That Build. We will catch you all next time.